Hello all, this is Sukesh. Today I'd like to talk about curiosity-driven exploration by self-supervised prediction. So let's begin with some background. This paper is actually a solution to a problem in modern reinforcement learning. Let's talk about reinforcement learning first. So what is reinforcement learning? It is training of machine learning models to make a sequence of decisions. So the agent here learns to achieve a goal in an uncertain and potentially very complex environment. In the reinforcement learning, AI actually faces a game-like situation, and the computer employs the trial and errors to come up with a solution to the problem. To get the machine to do what the programmer wants, the artificial intelligence either gets rewards or penalties for the action it performs. So its main goal is to maximize the total reward it gets. Although the designer sets the reward policy, that is, rules of the game, he gives the model no hints or suggestions for how to solve the game. It's up to the model to figure out how to perform the task to maximize the reward, starting from totally random trials and finishing with sophisticated tactics and superhuman skills. So by leveraging the power of search and many trials, reinforcement learning is currently the most effective way to hint at machines' creativity. In contrast to human beings, artificial intelligence can gather experience from thousands of parallel gameplays if a reinforcement learning algorithm is run on sufficiently powerful computer infrastructure. So let's talk about policy network in reinforcement learning. So what is a policy network? So in the reinforcement learning, it's actually surprisingly similar to normal framework in supervised learning. We still have an input frame, we run it through some neural network, and the network produces an output action, either up or down. But the only difference here is that now we don't actually know the target label. So we don't know in any situation whether we should have gone up or gone down because we don't have a data set to train on. And in reinforcement learning, the network that transforms the input frames to the output actions is called the policy network. So the approach in this is that you started with some completely random network. You feed that network a frame from the game engine. It produces some random action, either up or down. You send that action back to the game engine, and the game engine produces the next frame. So let's discuss how to train a policy network. What you'll do while training is actually sample from the distribution, so that you're not always going to repeat the same exact actions, and this will allow your agent to sort of explore the environment a bit randomly and hopefully discover some better rewards and even better behavior. Now importantly, because we want to enable our agent to learn entirely by itself, the only feedback that we are going to give is the scoreboard in the game. So whenever our agent manages to score a goal, it will either receive a reward of +1, or if the opponent scored a goal, then our agent will receive a penalty of -1. The entire goal of the agent is to optimize its policy to receive as much reward as possible. So now let's see what are the problems in reinforcement learning. But as always, like, there are very few significant downsides to using this method as well. So let's see the Pong game one more time here. So imagine that your agent has been training for a while and it's actually doing a pretty decent job at playing the game of Pong. It's bouncing the ball back and forth, but then at the end of the episode it makes a mistake and it lets the ball through it and it gets a negative penalty. So the problem with the policy gradients is that our policy gradient is going to assume that since we have lost that episode, all of the actions that we took there must be bad actions, and it is going to reduce the likelihood of taking those actions in the future. But remember that actually the most part of the episode we were doing really well, so we don't really want to decrease the likelihood of those actions in the reinforcement learning, and this is called credit assignment problem. So sparse reward setting. So this problem is entirely related to the fact that we have what we called a sparse reward setting. So instead of getting a reward for every single action, we only get a reward after an entire episode, and our agent needs to figure out what part of its action sequence were actually causing the reward that it eventually gets. So in the case of Pong, for example, our agent should learn that it's only the actions right before it hits the ball that are truly important. Everything else, once the ball is flying off from it, it doesn't really matter. Reward shaping, it's one of the solutions. The approach to solve this issue of sparse rewards has been the use of reward shaping. So reward shaping is the process of manually designing a reward function that needs to guide your policy to some desired behavior. So the fundamental idea is to tackle the reward and the reward sparseness problem in the reinforcement learning. So in the game of Mario, this could be further like further right you go, the more reward you get. You get kind of an additional reward if you go right coincidentally. Or situation is that reward is gonna be at the end. So you could also say like if you stomp the Goombas going by you, that actually gives you also a bit of reward. In chess, you could say like the more pieces you have, that also gives you a bit of reward. Or if your opponent loses pieces and you don't, and then you also get a bit of reward. But of course this is actually very domain specific. For example, in chess sometimes sacrificing is actually the best move. But again, while obviously this makes it easier for your policy to converge to a desired behavior, there are some significant downsides to reward shaping. So firstly, reward shaping is a custom process that needs to be redone for every new environment. A new reward function for every single one of those games, that's just not scalable. So the second problem is that reward shaping suffers from what we call the alignment problem. So it turns out that reward shaping is actually surprisingly difficult in a lot of cases. So let's say when you shape your reward function, your agent will find some very surprising way to make sure that it's getting a lot of reward, but not doing at all what you wanted it to do. And in a sense, the policy is just overfitting to that specific reward function that you design, while not generalizing to the intended behavior that you had in your mind. So here we have what is called as curiosity driven exploration, and this paper proposes one method to introduce an additional reward, not based on domain specifically, but based on what they call this curiosity, and it's specifically curiosity by self-supervised prediction. So what does that mean? If you go for the example here, so here is a kind of a doom environment, and what you could say is, in my agent I have kind of a little module that's going to predict the future. So like if I'm here, then I'll basically choose an action. My agent will choose an action like move forward, like press the forward key, and then I'll predict how that's gonna look. And of course, this kind of tree environment, so this is probably gonna be the part of the screen, part of this full screen, because you are now closer and so on, the perspective change a little bit. But basically this is like a neural network that predicts the future from the state now and action now. You can train this in a supervised fashion, because you'll perform some actions and then you'll collect some data about this. In this case, curiosity can serve as an intrinsic reward signal to enable the agent to explore its environment and learn skills that might be useful later in his life. This paper formulates curiosity as the error in an agent's ability to predict the consequence of its own actions. More generally, curiosity is a way of learning new skills which might come handy for pursuing rewards in the future. Our agent is actually composed of two subsystems: a reward generator that outputs a curiosity-driven intrinsic reward signal, and a policy that outputs a sequence of actions to maximize the reward signal. In addition to intrinsic rewards, the agent optionally may also receive some extrinsic reward from the environment. The policy subsystem, it's trained to maximize the sum of these two rewards, where sum of these two rewards is RIT plus RET, where this RET is mostly zero, not always, but it's mostly zero. So in this diagram we have intrinsic curiosity model, and then we have a policy network here, and then we have state at the time t. So when we pass this state to the policy network, it produces some action, and then we perform this action in the environment. It gives us the state at time t+1, and then we again perform this and then we again give this input of state at time t+1 to the policy network, and again it produces the action at time t+1. So the policy here is trying to optimize the sum of both these rewards, extrinsic reward plus the intrinsic reward. And then how is this then this extrinsic reward is coming from the environment, and this intrinsic reward is calculated by the intrinsic curiosity model. And when we zoom into the intrinsic curiosity model, what we have is, we have a forward model, we have inverse model, and then we have features network, which will convert our states into features of these states. I'll explain. This actually encodes the states into features that are actually trained to predict this A. So we have discussed that we have features instead of directly using these states. So the thing is, like, making predictions in the raw sensory space. Example, when state T corresponds to some images, is actually is undesirable, not only because it is hard to predict the pixels directly, but also because it is unclear if predicting pixels is even the right objective to optimize. To see why, consider using prediction error in the pixel space as the curiosity reward. Imagine a scenario where the agent is observing the movement of tree leaves in the breeze. Since it is inherently hard to model the breeze, it is even harder to predict the pixel location of each of these leaf or a tree or whatever. This implies that the pixel prediction error will remain high, and the agent will always remain curious about the leaves, but the motion of the leaves is unrelated to the agent's action, and therefore its continued curiosity about them is undesirable. The underlying problem is that the agent is unaware that some parts of the state space simply cannot be modeled, and thus the agent can fall into an artificial curiosity trap, and then it can stall its exploration. So if not the raw observation space, then what is the right feature space for making prediction, so that the prediction error provides a good measure of curiosity? So to answer this question, let us divide all the sources that can modify the agent's observation into three cases. Number one, things that can be controlled by the agent. Number two, things that the agent cannot control but that can affect the agent. Example, a vehicle driven by another agent. And number three, things that are out of agent's control and not affecting the agent. Example, moving leaves in the road trash game. A good feature space for the curiosity should be model 1 and model 2, and should be completely unaffected by model 3. This latter is because if there is a source of variation that is not significant for the agent, then the agent has no incentive to know about it. Now let's discuss about the inverse dynamics model in the intrinsic curiosity model. The paper actually proposes that such a feature space can be learned by training a deep neural network with two submodules, feature and inverse. The first submodule encodes the raw state into feature vectors, and the second submodule takes as inputs the feature vectors of two consequent states and predicts the action taken by the agent to move from state st to st+1. Training this neural network amounts to learning function g, as defined as this. So g of st+1, and then parameters are inverse model parameters, where here at of hat is the predicted estimate of the action, and the neural network parameters theta of I are trained to optimize. And this is the optimizing function here. So where Li is the loss function that measures the discrepancy between the actual action and the predicted action. So aim of this is to come up with a general mechanism for learning feature representation such that the prediction error in the learned feature space provides a good intrinsic reward signal. Now let's talk about the forward dynamics model in the intrinsic curiosity model. So this forward dynamics model predicts the feature representation of the next state. So we train another neural network that takes inputs as phi of st and predicts the feature encoding of this state at time step is t plus 1, and this is what it predicts. So this is function of phi of st, the feature space of current state and the action it has taken, and action taken at time t, and the forward model parameters. And this is the optimized function for this neural network. So loss function which has parameters these are equal to this. Intrinsic reward signal. In order to generate the curiosity based intrinsic reward signal, we jointly optimize the forward and inverse dynamics loss as described. So this is where we get the intrinsic reward signal at the end. So the inverse model learns a feature space that encodes information relevant for predicting agents' actions only, and the forward model makes predictions in this feature space. As there is no incentive for this feature space to encode any environment features that are not influenced by the agent's actions, our agent will receive no reward for reaching environmental states that are inherently unpredictable, and its exploration strategy will be robust to the presence of distracted objects or changes in illumination or other nuisance sources of variations in the environment. And finally, the loss function. So the overall optimization problem is that is solved for learning the agent is a composition of all these equations and can be written as here. So where beta is a scalar that weighs the inverse, beta is a scalar that weighs the inverse model loss against the forward model loss, and lambda which will always be greater than 0 is a scalar that weighs the importance of policy gradient loss against the importance of learning the intrinsic reward. And results, when the results were very surprising. So training agent in the Super Mario world with only using the curiosity based signal without actually any intrinsic reward from the environment, Mario was able to learn to cross over around 30% of level 1 without even having any sort of extrinsic reward. So the agent actually received no reward for killing or dodging those enemies or even avoiding the fatal events, and it automatically discovered these behaviors by itself just because of curiosity. One possible reason is because getting killed by enemy will result in only seeing small part of this game space, making it actually curiosity to saturate. And thank you for listening. And this is it about curiosity based self-supervised prediction.